Hello everyone, in this video we will create a placement with an active employer on myWEX. What is an active employer? This is an employer that's existing and has been approved for use to create placements on myWEX. So if you've just submitted your placement, it might take a few days before it is approved, assuming all of the documentation is included to support that application. So you're logged into myWEX. Now we can start the placement process. What we can do is find the employer. I'm going to place a student with 888 likes. And here we are. We've got the employer listing. Let's go into the details. Everything looks good here. The activity is exactly what I want to be sending the student to. And I have my documentation in place. You will need to have the WorkSafe clearance letter as well as the WorkSafe student work placement form, which indicated the day that the site was visited and the worksite analysis was completed, so that the employer has been vetted and found to be acceptable to be placing our students at, to have a good and safe experience on work experience. Oh, look at that. No placements can be made until the employer status is set to active. So that's what we're going to see if the employer hasn't been approved. So I'm going to contact myself and have this employer approved. So I just asked to have the employer set to active, and let's check. All right, now we're active. Now I'll be able to make the placement at this employer. So we're going to go back to placements. And there we go. There's our green circle with the plus. So now we can add a placement to this employer. You will be able to select the students based on the school that you are assigned to. So if you're assigned to multiple schools and you don't see all of them listed here, please contact myself, Jeff McSherry, so that I can give you access to the appropriate schools where you are going to be assigning WEX students. I've created a custom school for this purposes, and I've only got one student. All of the students at your school will show up here, and it's populated by the myWEX list based on the attendance you would see at your school. So all the students are listed here, and it would be sorted by last name. So we can scroll down here, and we can see we've got the employer name, the employer address, their information. There's only one kind of placement we can make, one type of activity, and the activity is, in this case, it's the bike assembler and tester. If there's multiple activities, you'd have to select the appropriate one. This information all comes from the activity and from the employer details. And now we get to set some parameters around it. I'll complete this and get back to you. I've got the information filled in here. The start date, you can set it as today, even if they definitely won't be starting today, but just in case they start early, we want to make sure the student is covered. The end date, put it towards the end of the school year to give the student time to get this done. If they're signing up near the end of the school year, give them until the end of the next school year. So let's actually give them a few more days to make sure they get all their hours in, because we want these students to have enough time to be successful in their work placements. Place by is the person who actually made the arrangements with the employer to do this. This is how many hours they're going to do. Want to aim for just putting in a few more hours than what they actually require for credit to graduate. And this is just if they had, they needed 80 hours and they did 75 hours, and then the employer asked them to come back for one more whole shift, then we don't want to be 83 hours and the student wouldn't be covered for the last 3 hours. This gives a little bit of wiggle room so that if the student doesn't complete the full amount of hours and they just complete the 80, then the student's covered by WorkSafe, and also the student will earn credit for the course. The teacher email, this is the teacher responsible for this placement. and the teacher monitor. So it could change who is monitoring versus who is actually doing the placing, versus who is actually evaluating the student. So if they're different people, then you can put in the appropriate name here. In this case, and in most of the cases, it will all be the same person. The occupation code was automatically filled in based on what we put into the activity and the employer. Job duties, this comes from the activity as well. Work hours arrangement, this was automatically entered based on the activity. If this changes, you can just change it on this document here. And let's say that the student's trying to complete it a bit quicker, so there we go. Public notes, please note this will be included on the workout agreement, so it will be printed off. So keep that in mind when putting that here. And then this will just be for our own records, only visible on myWEX with regard to this placement, if there are any special notes that should be accounted for. So everything looks good here. I'm going to go ahead and create the placement and double check that everything is correct. All right, so note now that we can update the placement. If you needed to make some changes, you could go in here and change any of the numbers around or any of the words around to make it fit. And now we'll be printing off the workout agreement. This still has the old language of the Langley WP5. This will be changing once WAVE comes into effect to replace WEX as the name of the course. So that will generate it. The new form will look a little different than the existing one, but you can see that the information is automatically populated. The student's address comes straight off of myEd. School information, placement details, the supervisor at the site location where the employer is, all the signatures that we need to get, so it's 5, and make sure that this agreement goes out to all of these parties. This will be changing based on the workout agreement that you are completing, based on it being a paid, unpaid placement at a standard workplace, or if you're doing a non-standard placement, which will also require an informed consent piece.